Welcome to the Your Brain Shift podcast, where we explore topics that promote mindset shifts and brain shifts for greater success, health, wellness, and fulfillment. I'm Keith Engelhardt. Our guest today is Karin Brauner, who was a speaker at the Total Health Summit that I organized a couple of years ago. She's also returning to the Your Brain Shift podcast after she was a guest in episode 4. Karin is an entrepreneur, a clinical psychologist and counselor that aims to increase wellness and improve people's lives and relationships through the different services that she offers. She has lived part of her life in Guatemala and currently is living in the south of England, where she is an author of 20 self-care habits, which aims to support individuals with setting clear boundaries and learning to meet their own needs, which is a thread of all Karin's work. So welcome, Karin. It's good to see you again. And
thank you very much.
Speaking of books, I understand that you have been busy with a new book launch, among other things.
I do. I've got 2 books now. So 20 Self-Care Habits, when we spoke 2 years ago, it was in its first edition. Now I'm waiting for the second edition to come, the proof copies to come. So it goes live on the 30th of June. So I've got like 26 days or so to finish tweaking everything. And the book launch is going to be on the 8th of July. If anyone wants to join, you can join through my website and /launch. We'll leave the website details on your page, hopefully, I think. And yeah, my second book is a fictional novel, which is a metaphor on how the unconscious works, which is also, if we don't deal with the unconscious, it'll deal with us. So the book is called The Beckoning Rooms. Deal with them or they'll deal with you. And if I could make a similarity with this book, with any other book that's out there, it's A Christmas Story and What Happens to Scrooge with the 3 ghosts. So we all know that story, so I won't go into it, but it's kind of similar to that, in that my 3 protagonists go through an experience in a very supernatural way where they have to revisit some things in their lives. And we don't know, do they get out of the beckoning rooms? What are they doing there? How did they get there? You'll have to read the book to find out. But it's all about unconscious processes, and it's also about improving your life by either going to therapy or looking deep into yourself and all that kind of, and dreams as well. And
I find the title extremely intriguing.
My husband actually came up with the title.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. I was telling him, I want the title to be something like The Rooms Are Calling, or something about rooms and they're over there and they're calling you. And he went, why don't you just call it The Beckoning Rooms? And I was sitting there like, just like that, you come up with the name of the book. So I'll have to credit him with the name of it, because that was just brilliant. I was just sitting there in awe, looking at him like, yeah, that's the name. Yeah, how'd you do that? It's brilliant.
Yeah, our unconscious and some of the information, ways we get it, for example, dreams and how we deal with it is important until, to kind of paraphrase that it deals with us.
And it comes back to haunt us, right? Because maybe we think, oh, that thing that happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when I was 4 or 5, oh, that's in my past, that's finished. No. There's no time in the unconscious. So whatever happened to you 50 years ago, 20 years ago, however long it was, it's going to keep affecting you in the now until you deal with it. So better get dealing with things. Otherwise, we're going to get stuck in patterns and processes, but we've got to be in the right frame of mind to do that. We can't just go, all right, I'm going to deal with this. And I'll give you a personal example of that. So this book came about from dreams I had. The same dream of me being in a house with a room that was a bit spooky. I didn't really want to go there. I never opened that door. Sometimes it was a cupboard. Sometimes it was a room. Sometimes it was a whole upstairs space. But I was like, I don't want to go there. And in 2003, I was in therapy. And I started talking about a topic. And I'll keep the topic between me and my therapist. But it was a very important, huge topic. And I started talking about it, and I couldn't. 3 more sessions I spent there, and then I left therapy. Like we say here in the UK, I legged it, ran out of there. Can't deal with this right now. And I think I left my therapist a bit shocked. She was like, well, we're talking fine about it. I was like, no, we weren't. I was freaking out, And then in 2010, I did another batch of therapy. But this time I couldn't get away. The first time I was there of my own accord. The second time I was there because it was part of my training.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't really leg it this time. I had to do it to be able to graduate. So as I started talking about it, I was like, oh no, I'm talking about this again. And I said to my therapist, I don't want to talk about this, but it's come up again, so let's just do it. And she freaked out, and she looked at me and said, are you sure? Like, yeah, we're in it now. So I spent a few weeks a bit in a surreal state. It was very strange talking about this topic. And after I finished talking about it and processing it, that dream with the house and the room stopped completely. I've not had it again ever since I talked about that topic that second time around.
Yeah.
So something in that second experience of therapy was processed and worked through enough so that those dreams wouldn't haunt me anymore. That I went into those rooms in my dreams by going into them in therapy. Mm-hmm. So my book is kind of a metaphor of that. So I didn't want to do it as a nonfiction book. So I made up 3 characters, Jenna, Jacob, and Jeremiah. I don't know why they sound Jewish, but I like it. Love Jewish people. So maybe that's come out, gotten into my book somehow.
Right.
But yeah, they go through 3 different rooms, 3 different things. And at the end, you find out whether they come out of the house or they're stuck in there or what happens to them. Yeah. So they go through a whole journey, kind of like I did.
So speaking of rooms, I understand you have another venture where you have a virtual escape room for people or rooms to explore.
Yeah, I'm so excited about that. I had a professional graphic designer create them for me. A professional graphic designer that does escape rooms. So both things I needed, and I found them in this guy called Mikel. He's Spanish but lives in the UK, and he was brilliant. So on the book launch, people will get a chance to win a book if they win first, second, or third prize. So first prize will be hardcover copy, which you can see. Well, you can't see it because it's a podcast, right? But you can see them over there. Yeah. The second prize will be a paperback, and the third prize will be a Kindle version. So, and we have 4 rooms. I think I showed them to you last time, didn't I?
Yeah, I saw some of the preliminary work you did on it when we connected a few months back.
Give you a sneak peek.
And it intrigued me. So other than the winning a copy of the book in one form or another, how's that escape room experience tied to the book or the theme of the book?
So I thought, what can I do? Because my publisher, Carrie Oberbrunner, an Author Academy Elite, he did what was his book? Day Job to Dream Job, I think it was. How to Get Out of Your 9-to-5 Job. Mm-hmm. So he did that in Shawshank. He did it for the anniversary of Shawshank. He's the Shawshank author. That's what he's known as now. So he put people like in the prison cells and gave them the experience of you're trapped in your 9-to-5 job. How do you get out of it? And he did a whole workshop, like an immersion workshop on it. So I was like, what can I do for mine? That's an immersion workshop, but online. I thought, well, they're trying to escape the Beckoning Room's house and all the rooms. Why not do an escape room? Mm-hmm. So I started researching, and my research was a lot of fun. So I got to play some escape rooms from other people that have gone online since the pandemic began.
Yeah, and you have a real life experience of what it's about. Yeah,
it was great. And one of my husband's online friends lives nearby, and he goes to the States and does tours of escape rooms, physical escape rooms. So he's an expert on doing physical escape rooms, but he didn't know what an online one would look like. So he came over here. We ignored my husband, even though he's friends with him. He spent the whole day with me. So that's quite cool. And we just played games all day long to figure it out. And he was really, key to getting me to develop those ideas, and then send them to the graphic designer who just used what we'd come up with to make them the best they could be. And there's 4 rooms in the in the virtual escape room. It'll be free to play on the day of the launch until the week after, about 10 days. I'm leaving it free, and then you'll pay £10 if you want to play, but you'll have it forever. And it's kind of like a mixture of a book reading and an escape room. So at the top, I've got a little bit of book reading, and I've added audio to it. And then you play the game, and you have to solve the puzzles as you go. And they're brilliant puzzles. I struggled figuring them out, and I knew what the password was. Yeah. Right? But it was brilliant because it really makes you think. It really makes you go, okay, what is this? Does this go here? Is this clue for that? How do you do this? And once you get it, it's like, oh, brilliant. Yeah. The graphic design, I'm telling you, he did a very good job.
And it's also a bit of a metaphor for the theme of your book, or in our conversation earlier about the unconscious and the dream is, how do we understand and interpret what that experience is, and what is it that we need to escape or that we're trying to escape.
That's it. And people will get to experience that firsthand. So you can read a book and it's great, and I hope people will enjoy it. My husband said it was a page turner, but I think he's a bit biased. And you get to be in the rooms with Jenna. So I introduced Jenna. I don't introduce the other two because that would be too complicated. So just you get to meet Jenna and learn a little bit about Jenna. I got a few snippets from the book, so you get to experience what she was going through. Where am I? All the tension she goes through, which is kind of how I felt in my therapy sessions. Oh my God, no, this topic again. I don't want it. Why is it here? What's going on? Why these dreams? Why now? Why do I need to talk about this? Right?
Yeah, our saboteurs get in the way. The voider is one of those. The primary one I've spoken in some shortcasts recently is the judge, but the avoider's a support saboteur that it's sometimes gets in the way of. I don't want to face this, or this is too much to look at, difficult to look at. But unless we do explore some of that inner work, it does get in the way of the theme of our podcast, and that's our success and life fulfillment, and more importantly, health and wellness, because a lot of that stuff that we keep suppressed ends up, impacting our health and well-being, not only psychologically but physically as well.
Part of processing the unconscious is figuring out what patterns we're repeating. So we might keep getting into relationships or friendships with people that might be toxic for us, or that might be getting our energy away from us, right? And or we could be getting into relationships where we're giving everything and they're not giving anything, or vice versa.
Or no boundaries, or unhealthy boundaries,
exactly.
Which I know is a big theme for you, is how we set boundaries and meeting our needs, and how that does improve our lives and our relationships.
That's it. So I do a mixture of things in my therapy. So let's go to the past and see what was there that is making you be who you are right now, that you really don't, it's not helping you, right? So if something is distressing you, let's find out what happened back there, and then bring it back to the present. So I dip in and out of the past and the present. And in the practical sense, okay, so we've delved into your past. We've had a cry. We've become angry. We become resentful a bit. We've got all those feelings out that maybe we hadn't processed in the past. Now what do we do with that? All right, maybe we set some boundaries. Maybe we figure out what it is you're missing with your relationship with your sister or your mother or whoever it is. They call you 24/7 when you're busy and you really don't want to talk to them, but you don't know how to say, can you stop? Okay, let's start with that. Why don't you tell them that you're going to call them, because then you're in control, and you're not going to bombard them with phone calls because you're busy.
Yeah.
So setting
and what lessons is life presenting learning opportunities to learn, and that we keep putting ourselves in situations where we have no boundaries and so forth. It's all kind of linked together, and what we repress seems to repeat itself until it
does. And once we understand
those lessons,
once we understand why we keep putting ourselves into those situations, then we can go, all right, let's move from there. And sometimes it just happens organically. We don't even have to think about what am I going to do to change this. It just comes into us. It just becomes part of who we are. So I've had clients where I will say something, and it's even happened to myself in my therapy. I will say something in January to a client and they're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But nothing happens with it. 6 months later, they come in and they say exactly what I said to them, or exactly what we had a conversation about, but it's now become part of who they are. So it took them a bit of incubation period, processing time, because the time in the unconscious is a bit different than time as we know it. So it takes them a bit of time, but once it's taken root, it's taken root. You know, we take the let's say bad roots out, the roots that weren't helpful out, and we plant better, better boundaries, meeting your needs kind of boundaries, kind of roots in there that will be more healthy. And you just see a transformation throughout the sessions. This is why I love my work. It's never boring. It's always like, wow, that happened, and it's not the things I say usually, it's the things that they figure out along the way of our conversations.
What meaning it has for them, because no matter what's happened in our past, there's going to be some individual meaning or perception of it. And no matter how traumatic or what the impact was, it doesn't have to be our present. That's where it doesn't serve us. If it's our present and becoming our future, it needs a serious look at and exploration, because it is diminishing our potential at so many levels, and usually it's an impediment to us experiencing joy or exuberance, or for that matter, just being present in the moment.
That's it as well. Yeah, we're either depressed because we're thinking of the past, or anxious because we're thinking of the future. But the things that happen to us in our past, whether big or small, who decides what's big or small, right? Can impact on how we set boundaries or not set boundaries, and how we meet our needs or not meet our needs. Because we live in especially the Western society, I think, is more like that, where if you take care of yourself, you're selfish. If you say no to somebody, oh, how rude are you? No. I said no for now. I can meet you later. I can meet you on Saturday instead of today. I've got other things to do. That's frowned upon in society, but I think I like to challenge society. As you've probably found out from our previous conversations, I'm like, no, if it's not working for you, why do you need to follow what society tells you? Don't break the rules.
More importantly, it's a bit of a double bind, at least for the mindsets that we laud and foster here in the States. There's an underlying theme of, or archetype of, individualism. Well, how can you value individualism if there isn't a layer of selfishness,
healthy selfishness?
And how can you take care of others or offer something to others when there isn't an abundance of self-love or whatever attribute you want to apply to it, that we have to take care of this person before we have anything to give in overflow, or whatever terms you want to assign to others. It's actually one of the secrets of the most successful people is they are a little self-oriented, and what often is characterized as selfish.
Yeah, and I say self-care is essential. In fact, it's not selfish at all. So I think my book, and maybe even the novel, challenge people's views on, do I look after myself? Do I think about myself? Actually, yes, you should, right? And that's one of the few times I will use the word should, because I think should is a bit of a naughty word, because it says you have to do this, you should do this. No. Do I want to do this? Do I need to do this? That's something that I talk to my clients about.
Is it incongruent with my core values?
Exactly. Is it what you really want, or is it what somebody else told you wanted? And if we're living a false persona because of what society expects from us, then we're going to not be fulfilled or healthy
and often
or well.
quite miserable.
and quite miserable and resenting everyone else when actually it's under our control. So what is our responsibility here?
Mm-hmm.
It's to look
and
at all that stuff.
I love one of the interpretations of responsibility that I've heard. Most people associate it with you accept blame for whatever the outcomes are, or you're culpable for them or cause them and so forth. And responsibility comes from two words: responsibility.
Yeah.
And we have the ability to respond to anything in life with an infinite number of possibilities or choices, reactions, no matter what the external trigger is. And that literally circles right back around to that individuality and focus on self is like, okay, how do I respond to that based on
how do I want to respond? And chapter 2 of my book is planning ahead. Because when you start setting boundaries, people will call you rude. People will go away because you're not that yes person anymore. How dare you not meet my needs when I want you to, So planning ahead will help us have a script.
Yeah.
Right. So
and
we
not
can
everything
say,
life warrants a response. It's okay to not respond.
Yeah. And staying with the responsibility theme. Are you responsible for how you made somebody feel by you saying no? Mm-hmm. No. They chose to feel angry or upset.
That's their reaction. Yeah.
That's their responsibility. That's how they chose to respond. They need to own that. And I find that that's so helpful. It's been helpful for me in my life to go, no, I didn't make you upset. If I'm rude to you on purpose, then yeah, it's my responsibility. Mm-hmm. But if I say, no, Keith, I can't right now, and you get angry with me, am I responsible for you getting angry with me?
Yeah.
No, I'm just being true to myself. If you can't accept that, then bye-bye, off you go, right?
Yeah. And one of the favorite yogis that I follow, he has an insight that no matter what's going on in the exterior world, the perception of that is always right here in here.
Yeah.
And whose world or mental movie or response is that, and who's responsible for it?
Right. And if we go to phenomenology, I guess it is, we might both be looking at the same table, but we're both having a very different experience of that same
that is
table,
an insight that
right?
Is so overlooked. If I hold out my hand and I see the back of my hand, can I see the front? You can, but I can't see that. So no matter what we're perceiving, there's some layer of the reality that we're not seeing.
Yeah, it's like that meme that's going around with one person it's a 6 on the ground, but one person is seeing it from one side and the other one is seeing it from the other. One sees a 6, one sees a 9. So we could argue all day. No, it's a 9. No, it's a 6. No, it could be both.
Yeah. And a little story kind of illustrates that. I'll just choose a random name for the character. Bob orders this thing online, and the part number for it is 669. And waits a while. The part gets delivered, and he opens up the package, and he's just totally irate. And gets somebody on the phone, and he's screaming and hollering. And he says, "You sent me the wrong part. It's 699, and I ordered 669." And the person on the other end said, "Well, turn it upside down."
It's brilliant. Yeah, it's about perspective, but that can harm relationships, and our health and everything. It'll affect how we feel in life, whether we're fulfilled or not. Mm-hmm. Because if I think you don't like me because I said no to you, then I'm going to say yes to you the rest of the time because I want you to like me. But actually, I'm letting myself down then. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I say no right now, I will not resent myself for saying yes to you. And I will not resent you for making me, let's say in inverted commas, say yes to you because you want this done now. And that safeguards the relationship. That keeps the relationship healthy because I'm honoring myself. And this has so many layers, doesn't it? It goes really deep. It's like
Yeah, and
setting
we let
boundaries and
so
meeting
much
your needs.
trigger
It's,
us in modern
yeah.
times. You know, it hasn't been that far in human history where it took 30 days for a letter to get from New York to Los Angeles, um, and then another 30 days to get back. And you know, life worked.
It
It
was
went
how it
along
was.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yet we get triggered by not getting a 10 millisecond response to a text message.
Yeah.
Because maybe somebody's not available.
Yeah. If
The
I send a
technology didn't
message,
work. They didn't get it.
yeah. If I
Or they
send a
chose
message
not to
and
respond.
they don't respond quickly, I'm like, okay, they're probably doing something. But some people are like, why didn't you respond? It's like, I was asleep because you messaged me at 3 a.m, or what did you think I was going to do?
My phone was off.
My phone was off, ran out of battery. I was on a holiday, didn't have
Yeah.
signal, whatever it is. Didn't want to, We usually wouldn't admit to that, but sometimes we
My
don't want
kid
to.
was throwing up in my lap.
Yeah. The fire,
Yeah.
that's a bit more important than a text.
Mm.
But yeah, getting people understanding each other. I think that's where I was thinking of going next.
Yeah, and that comes from mutual dialogue and the patience to explore the levels of understanding and meaning. Because whether it's a text message or verbal communication, there are layers of meaning that are different for each individual, even though we share a common language.
Yeah. For example, I won't say anything about who this is, but they got a message from their manager, and it was in capital letters, and they thought my manager's angry with me. But actually, it was just the manager making a point. Just get this done, And it wasn't even a rude message or have you done this?
Right, because you can't have the tonal inflection paraverbal like I, that inflection that, okay, you got to try and communicate that some way through text.
Yeah, but if you ask a question, Mr. Manager, what are you angry with me? Or is it just that's how you type? So if we get the understanding of what the other person means by what they're doing, then we go, okay. They weren't actually angry. That's just how they communicate. It's a bit peculiar because everyone knows the capital letters are shouting, but maybe he doesn't,
Or at least that's the assumption, yeah.
Or he's lying and he's actually.
Well, so I know for some people that aren't technology savvy, is they'll prefer to do everything either lowercase or uppercase because it's too much of bother to figure out
changing it.
Changing it, especially if they happen to be on an older phone that's not a smartphone, and they got to press a letter, a key rather, 3 times to get to a different letter, let alone get to a different text.
Yeah,
like there's all kinds of reasons why it might be all caps.
Especially if you got like an old-fashioned phone, like a 90s phone.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, the flip phones with the. Yeah,
I've got both. I know the people watching on video will see this. I've got a 90s phone and I've got a Galaxy A5.
Yeah.
So I've got both, but I usually use for phone calls this one, and for texts, it's a nightmare to type in that. And I'm sure people are going, "Why did she put capital letters on my name?" It's like I just can't.
And these days, you really have to proofread before stuff goes out because the so-called autocorrect will change stuff that you never typed in the first place. Yeah. Totally change words, and who knows what goes out.
Yeah. But yeah, I think understanding is what people need. Mm-hmm. First, we understand ourselves.
That sometimes takes time and patience and layers to peel off understanding and meaning. Yeah.
But if I understand myself, then I can explain me to you, and you will know better where I'm coming from. But if I don't even know where I'm coming from, I might respond angrily to you, or I might be sitting there crying, and you're like, "What the heck happened here?" But if I understand why, I'm like, give me a second. Let me just cry it out. It's okay. I'm fine. I'll explain to you why in a second. Just let me get it out, right? And if we start, that's kind of boundary, right? Don't worry about me. I'm fine. I just need to cry for a second.
Yeah.
And then I'll explain to you what happened.
It's something that I need to do.
Yeah. You don't have to rescue me. You don't have to make me happy. You don't have to make me smile. Just sit next to me. And if you want to get me a cup of tea, that'd be nice. But apart from that, I need to get this out. And then once I'm finished, I will explain to you what happened so you can get why this happened.
Yeah. Or I may need some time for that to incubate so I figure out what to explain. Yeah.
That's it. But I think, that's something that's missing in our world. because everyone's triggered by anything. You know, and if I go a bit biblical, it says everyone will be offended. Jesus said that in Matthew 24. In the end times, everyone will be offended. What have we got now? Everyone's triggered and offended by everything. So I'm like, are we in the end times? What's going on here? You know?
Yeah.
And it's true. Everyone's offended by the littlest thing. But if we start to understand that there's a reason why they're offended, their past is getting triggered, their unconscious stuff is getting triggered. They're projecting on us that we said something, but actually we didn't mean that. They're putting that on us.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to work with that in therapy and to see it live. I've had it live. I'll give you an example. I used to live with this lady, and I think, you know, she was a boarding school child. She's from another country, and she was sent here, so she felt abandoned. Then I moved in, and it was all good because it was just the two of us. And then somebody else moved in that was younger. She had a son, so she couldn't really go with us at any time because she had to pick the son from school or drop him off or be with the kid, right? So one day we decided to go to a different town, to go to an outlet shopping center. And we didn't tell her. We didn't think we did need to tell her because we're paying rent. That's all you need to know, right? So we just went. And when we came back, she had a shouting match with us. You are this and you are that and you're all. She just had a complete go at us. And I was just standing there looking at her like, this has nothing to do with me, you know. And if I'd started shouting back, my friend, my other housemate, would have started shouting at her, and that would have been a mess. But I figured out. I intuitively figured out this is not about me. This is probably about her mom and her abandonment issues there. So she might have felt that we abandoned her by not including her in our plans. But the reason we didn't include her was because we would have to get back early, you know, because she'd have to pick up her kid. So we just didn't include her in that. We weren't trying to be mean or anything. We just made a plan by ourselves. As long as you're getting the money for the rent, that should be okay with you.
Yeah.
Right? But it wasn't. So I just stood there. I went to have a cry afterwards because it's when somebody shouts at you that intensely and you're like, I didn't do anything wrong with you. So I went to have a cry.
It can be a verbal assault of sorts. Yeah.
But she projected all her stuff on us. And I don't think she's even processed it yet. You know, I moved out shortly after that because I don't want to live with that.
Yes, sometimes that's part of setting boundaries, is just remove ourselves from situations or people that are toxic.
And she even said, yeah, Karin, I understand why you're moving out. I understand you don't want to live with somebody like me. Like, you bet, lady. You know?
Interesting that she may have been okay with that.
She knew, she knows, she had an awareness of how she was, but she still couldn't help it. And maybe she wasn't ready to go to therapy or do anything else about it. But I saw it and I understood where she was coming from. I didn't enjoy that moment, you know, obviously, but I understood that this had something to do with her own abandonment issues and stuff that she hadn't resolved from her past. So we kind of come round full circle to understanding, setting boundaries, and dealing with the past.
And those unconscious things that we haven't addressed, because it could be abandonment related, it could be survival related in some shape or form, but it's usually unprocessed responses to past events that keep bubbling up. Our biology is pretty amazing that it will continue to resurface things until we face them.
That's it. And also something else with that story, and in general, really, is sometimes it was easier for her to shout at me and the other housemate than to shout at her mom. So she maybe could never shout at her mom because it's still her mom and she needs her. But projecting it on us,
or the possible perception that you filled that authority figure image for her, and that's what she was responding to.
But we shouldn't shout at our parents anyway, right? We should respect them. So maybe that's another aspect of it, right? But it's easier to shout at somebody totally unrelated So in my work as well, I talk to clients about, okay, so what has to do with the person in the present and what has to do with A, B, C, D from your past.
Mm-hmm.
So you are angry at the person from now, but you're angry like 10% at them, but you lashed out like it was person B, C, D, E from your past, because that thing triggered all the responses that you wish you'd done in the past. And that's exactly what my landlady did. She lashed out at us like we were the ones that abandoned her when she was a little girl, and all of these things.
And I could see that abandonment being triggered by, a tenant leaving. And that's tied to one's economic safety net, so to speak, and the challenge of having to fill that void.
Well, she did that to herself.
Yeah, sometimes that connection isn't clear to people, how it was maybe self-induced or they played a major role in.
And that itself says a lot about her attachment.
Yeah.
She's got insecure attachment or ambivalent attachment where I want to have you here, but at the same time I need to push you away because it's too scary to get close to you. Attachment here is very complex, but I'll summarize.
Which is a very, very exhausting dance to be involved in.
Yeah. And that's why you have to go, actually, no, I don't want this kind of relationship.
Thank you, but no.
Thanks, but no thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. So all awesome insights to nudge us to explore our past and our unconscious.
It can be scary, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. And a lot of times it involves feelings, and I've kind of maybe made this statement or used this metaphor before, is it can be scary, but from a biochemical perspective, most emotions, it is a biochemical response in our physiology in our brain, and it usually lasts about 90 seconds. There might be repeated rounds of it, and we have to kind of learn how to use the surfboard to surf those waves sometimes, but ultimately it will expend itself and seek equilibrium. That's what the biology is trying to do, and it's quite good at it. It's our resistance to that I think for me gets us in trouble and amplifies any perceived pain that we have around it.
And with the biology stuff and the neuroscience kind of stuff, if we don't process stuff, sometimes we get ill physically. It's not just mentally.
The body keeps the score.
The body keeps the score.
The body keeps the score. It's going to come out in some way. We now even have research that shows that a lot of our major illnesses, heart disease, cancer, diabetes,
even cancer,
are tied to stored, repressed thoughts, emotions, and all that stuff. And compared to other species in the animal kingdom, because we are part of the animal kingdom, they will respond to a threat or some sort of trauma, but they shake it off and they're back to their state of equilibrium.
Yeah.
As far as we know, we're the only species that has that capacity to hang on to and reflect about the past and ruminate it.
We go in a loop.
Project that into the future rather than just being in the moment of the experience. Let the emotions flow and the balancing to occur, and then move on.
That's it. So process stuff, but be kind to yourself as well.
Yeah, be patient, because it is a process. It is a journey. We don't have to climb the whole mountain at once.
Exactly.
You can take it in baby steps and little chunks.
And my experience from earlier, first batch of therapy ran out of there like there was no tomorrow. Second batch, okay, let's do this now. It's going to have to be done, right? Yeah. So it didn't happen. There was a gap of 7 or 8 years between starting on working on the topic and running away and then actually dealing with it.
Yeah.
So it's not going to happen overnight or on the first go.
Yeah. Everything in life is a process.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. We get attached to the anticipated or expected outcome.
And that takes time.
Might be quite different than what we initially thought where it was going to take us. So enjoy the ride and the dance.
Enjoy the ride. Yeah. Definitely.
Well, it's been a delight catching up with you again, and you sharing your two newest ventures, the book and the related escape room. And I encourage our listeners and viewers to check them out. The links to all that will be in the podcast notes. And join us again in a couple of weeks when my guest will be Jeanette Brown.
Nice. Thank you so much.